Hey guys, Marshall here again with another episode of Plausibly Anything. Uh, Pardon me, my dad's working with his backhoe in the back here, and I wanted to kind of show it off too. This guy's a badass man. He's a bamf, as Dan would say. Dan Cook would say. This man has always uh, been living a dangerous lifestyle and using this backhoe, and he has some crazy stories with that backhoe. I mean, there's one time he was uh, he's stuck on the hillside down in the back, and he had to use the hoe to actually pull himself up the hill. He always tells that story um, about how his adrenaline was flowing, and he felt like if he would have gave any ground, he could have slid down the hill, maybe flipped the backhoe or something like that. Um, it's always dangerous using machinery like that, and I have to give him the utmost respect. I never learned how to use the backhoe, and neither has my brother. But he's not what other people would call a professional, but I think in his own mind he is, and I trust that he's. Sometimes I have that fear that he's gonna do something wrong, get himself hurt, but he never really has. So I mean, he has got himself hurt in different ways, but not on the backhoe. But today, I'm looking for a segue into this, but it's hard to find one. I mean, I think other people have probably said to him that you're going to get yourself hurt in that backhoe, but his internal locus and mindset and understanding of what he's capable of doing has always been able to aid him in doing exactly what he wants to do. And so creating that internal locus of control about doing what feels right in the moment is really important in life. But I've been talking about how these things like state, these things that are like very hard to really understand and really control. And so in the beginning levels of like social interaction, it may be a good idea to come up with some sort of material, some canned material, which is often frowned upon by people. People don't want to be like, people will like think that you got your own lines and stuff like that. But having certain things that you consistently say whenever you're in a certain position is always good, because it literally, you're not going into your mind to try to find it. So if you always have some sort of response, this develops over time, but having some canned material to know where, if you ask one question and know where it's going and having an understanding of where that conversation is going to go, you're going to have that preparation that you can handle where the conversation is going to go. And for some people, that's going to be the best way for them to really start going from not knowing what to say to having something to say and having some direction. Because some people have such a trouble with this that they can't come up with anything whenever they go up and talk to a girl. And so it may be good to have something canned to kind of show the intent of where you want the conversation to go. And so I actually was looking at some old documents that I had on canned material and stuff like that, and things that work, things that don't, and people establish like what things really work, what sort of conversational topics really work. And a lot of times the edgy conversational topics worked really good whenever people discussed, I mean, like the actual canned material was geared around females and stuff like that. Like I have a girlfriend that just broke up with me. I have a friend who has a girlfriend, and she found out that she found another pair of underwear from another girl, and he said that was his own G-string and stuff like that. Funny stuff, like goofy stuff that's like edgy and like like, wow, I can't believe this is like where the conversation's going, can kind of spike some interest there, especially whenever you're talking to people that don't really have a lot of time in a given day. And so find things that work, understand why they work, and then having like a multitude of things that you can say to open up people. It's almost like, uh, to me, I find this like connection with stand-up comedy um, and opening random people. If it's in the day, having something that really creates a reaction from people. All of a sudden, they're, instead of deciding that they've got to move on with their day, they're deciding like, where is this conversation going to go? Like, it's almost like you really have to captivate somebody with some sort of like energy and story. And we've talked a lot about energy and state like that, but if you can't operate in a state like that, maybe it's time to like just kind of test the waters, and have something that you already have canned to maybe test the waters, and talk to some people before you even explore your own state and your own energy and things like that are kind of a little bit complex if you haven't really uh, established that zone yet. So I've been actually been coming up with all kinds of different like ridiculous topics that are kind of geared towards stand-up comedy, but are also, some of them might actually work in a scenario whenever I'm talking to random people. And actually, it gives me a reason to even talk to them about it. Like I could come up with something that I'm using as like test material, like, and I could say, okay, I get it. That one, that didn't work, and that's actually something I do stand up comedy, and I'm trying to like work on material, and I, this doesn't seem like it's gonna work with a female audience, and then they might understand, they understand that maybe you're not even actually trying to pick them up, but you're trying to also uh, try out your material in a way, to see, like, because it's geared towards like things, hobbies and stuff like that. And so for me that would work really well, just like trying to practice different material. If she gets the idea that you're just using canned material on her to try to just like leave with her and stuff like that, that's gonna be you're gonna run into a lot of problems there, because that has been frowned upon for a long time. If any girl picks up on the fact that you're just like using material, you're gonna have to get really genuine with them really quickly, or they're just gonna move on to something else. So it's good to have like something that you can start out from that may be canned, and then also express your ability to improv that, and create a conversation, some jib jabs, some joking. Um, Oftentimes, I think this would be really good in a scenario whenever you're not approaching a girl by themselves. Maybe she's walking with another girl or two girls, and you can stop the whole group. Because I feel like a lot of girls, if you stop them by themselves, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Obviously, this can work, but um, engaging in like a group of girls, talking to them, winning them over with some humor, and then seeing, I don't know, have some sort of plan where um, you're going to meet your buddy at the coffee shop, you want to come with me, something like that. um, have some sort of plan, something. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, really, because like this is like a beginner type episode here. This is like, hey, you're testing the waters, getting to trying out talking to women during the day, maybe at night, having some material that you're working with. As much as people say that you might be trying too hard, understand to have an internal locus of control where, to you or to me, I think that you should be trying as hard as possible. I have people that tell me like, you're overthinking this stuff, state frictions, all this stuff. You're kind of overthinking it because you might get absorbed in all these sort of theories and stuff, and absorbed in all this stuff that can happen. But I think it's extremely important to know what's going on. And so when you sort of go the extra mile to understand what's going on, you're going to be a lot different than those guys that like trying to block out all of this stuff, all this information, this social information, social dynamics, psychology. That stuff is blocked out by like 90% of men. Men are not as interested in it as much as women are. I would say that there's 50% or more women that are fascinated in psychology. So this is something that's not going to be common with a lot of guys. A lot of guys just want to go through the world, with study their fantasy football and stuff like that, or sports, and have their social interactions revolve around sports and revolve around being around groups of men or they're comfortable with. And I think that it's time that you sort of explore surrounding yourself with a group of women and figuring out what sort of humor works with them, what sort of edginess. Their sexual humor works really well with women and men. So understanding, and I would recommend maybe even watching Netflix Matt Rife's stand-up comedy he just did recently. He has a very female-oriented audience, and a lot of his comedy in that stand-up was geared towards women. And I think he was actually struggling a little bit during that stand-up, but to get laughs, because gearing it towards the women, it was like, I don't know, it's difficult. It's difficult to gear your comedy towards women because you're a man and you understand what makes you laugh, and you sort of reincorporate that. You see all the things that make you laugh, and you sort of reincorporate that and tell your buddies and stuff. And so that's how what you establish is funny. And so establishing what your audience is going to think is funny is really important. What your audience is going to think is interesting, and that's so important. I can't stress to you how important that is, to understand what your audience is. Because I read a stand-up comedy book, I forget what it was, and that was like one of the first chapters was all about understanding your audience, religious views, cultural views, areas of the world, things that are political happening in that area of the world, in that state. All of these things are going to make more sense depending on the audience. And as soon as you start to have to explain things to people, that's whenever jokes die and humor dies and intuition dies and things like that. So that is what I'm going to wrap up when it comes to approaching using the right canned material to work. A lot of the canned material that I saw also was about like who cheats more, men or women, things that are like I said earlier, edgy stuff, things that are going to shock women, things that like you approach a group of women and they might all have different views on, and then you're like, okay, I'm cool with this chick, you guys can take a hike, we're going to go hang out, and just joke about it and stuff like that. Who knows, maybe she's even not the girl that you're after and everything, not the girl that you're interested in, depending on looks. You never know. But and one of the most important things, and something that is so important in social media right now, I see this, I can't stress to you more how important the mystery is. The mystery of where a video is going to go. That's how social media is so geared now. A lot of these TikTok videos, they won't even actually show you what the punchline is. They might wait three videos for it. They want to hook their audience in, keep hooking them in with the mystery of things, and then they might tell you in the end. And so understanding the mysteriousness, whenever you take this conversation in a mysterious manner, prolong it, and maybe even pull back and be like, I got to go to the bathroom, I'll be back in a second. Or maybe you have like I know this is going to sound like strange, but maybe you have a hand signal with your buddy to tell him to interrupt you so that you can tell them that later. Um, or like, let's say, I mean, this is going to be complex, but let's say you're with a buddy and you're at the bar and you're with a socially savvy dude. He's talking to another group of people, and you kind of like brush your arm a bit or something like that. He comes up, interrupts you, and while your story's getting really entertaining, and then he pulls you away from the girls for a second. Hey guys, hold on 1 second. I gotta talk to my buddy real quick. I'll be right back. And then take your time, come back to them, and finish your story. And so they get that. They're gonna be drawn to that, especially if the story's good. Especially if they're waiting for that kicker. Basically, like a social media video. People are they're looking for that next video. They're looking for where's part 2? Where's part 3? This shit's getting really good. What's gonna happen? Like, it's so ridiculous, but that's psychology there, and the mysteriousness is so important. Where is this gonna go? Also, it's so important that first sentence that comes out of your mouth. It's like a journal, like it's like journalizing, and you have a story typed in the newspaper. That first sentence is really going to sell people on what the rest of the article is about. So you got to pull them in, because they read that first sentence. If it's not good, they might move on. If that first video that you put up on social media doesn't have the mysteriousness, it doesn't bring you. There has to be, to me, honestly, I think that having the mysteriousness is good. If they don't get to anything good in that episode or in that video, I don't want to watch the next video. So if they get to something good and there's a progression into the video, and towards the end they might not give you all the details, it might bring you back wanting for more, that is a good video. You don't just really want something that's just mysteriousness that doesn't like turn into anything. So gear yourself around that. You want to have mysteriousness, but you also want to lead towards something. So I definitely would recommend thinking about how you can understand your audience a little bit more, understand women a little bit more, so that you can even reach that point whenever you're like, I have an intuition in what the type of person you are. Say things like this. This is stuff that is going to still create mystery towards you when you're talking about them. When you're trying to understand other people, they still don't understand who you really are. They might not even know what your career is, what you're interested in, things like that. But you can actually fascinate them in you figuring out who they are. And so whenever you can do things like that, you're still creating this level of mystery about yourself. How does he know all this stuff? I need to know more about this guy. All of a sudden, whenever you pull away and they don't even know anything about you, they want more. They want a lot more. They want to know more. Who was this guy? He said something so funny, and then he also intrigued me with how interested he was in my hobbies and things like that. He was able to figure out that there's some blockages in that maybe because of past trauma, things like that. It's, you guys, this is how you fascinate people on a one-to-one level, on a several people to one level, entering groups that are predominantly women. Like that's gonna be your goal. Like, I would just recommend, you probably shouldn't be opening groups that are predominantly men, because a lot of times there's a girl that has a social circle of men around them that all want her attention, and she really loves that. And then all of a sudden you're gonna like enter in this like social circle where all these men want her attention and stuff like that. I mean, you can always make this work. There's no line to say that you can't make things work, but I think you should be exploring the other stuff first before you think you can like fascinate some woman that has 4 or 5 guys' attention in the bar already, surrounded by men. But I've experienced that before. So many times whenever I've met a girl that has a bunch of men around her, and I talk to her, and I also try to figure out what's going on here. What's this dynamic? These guys really care about you. Oh yeah, oh yeah. So these guys say that you're their sister. Is it? I'm calling bullshit. You know, this is a bit ridiculous. He doesn't look anything like you. You know, it's, I don't know, but all kinds of different scenarios where you become a little bit more social savvy. You know what other guys are doing. Um, but like I said, you know, the beginning area of this video, that's where you need to work on breaking that ice, getting some stuff that works, and getting an understanding of where the conversation goes. Understand where, if someone says no to what you're saying with a question you ask, understand where you're going to go with after they say no. Understand where you're going to go with after they say yes. Understand what you're going to do if they ignore you. So there's all these different things that can happen, and have an understanding of what you do with all those, and then you sort of establish your what works for you, and then all of a sudden you can elaborate that on that, and you can have different bits or threads or things so you can segue into in the conversation. If you have a wingman, eventually you really should find a guy that is interested in meeting women also, because, and especially if they're really interested in actually being good at it, then you can just establish this power in whatever scenario, whatever setting you go into, whatever bar. You're establishing this like ability for you to bring groups of people together. He has threads of conversation, you have threads of conversation. You know what kind of person is, what sort of funny things he says. You can elaborate on his stories. You can also do things to even make him seem even cooler than he is too. Instead of being like one of those guys that's trying to be an energy sucker, you can actually say things, be like, this guy's being so fucking modest here. He actually did this, this, and this. Like, he doesn't like to brag for himself, so that's why I brag for him. This guy's a fucking badass, you know? And so, once you can... For a lot of people, you're just going to be scratching the surface of what, where things can really go. Because there's so many different directions these social interactions can go, especially when you bring people in there that support you, especially whenever you have good material and conversational topics, whenever you stay tuned to like political events, what's going on in the area. If you're on vacation, understand what type of people are that, what is their culture like. Maybe you should start asking about what is the culture like around here. You know, I'm trying to figure out. You can use that. You can literally walk in a bar and start figuring out what kind of people are in that area. Or maybe you start the day figuring out what kind of people are in that area, asking people questions about what is like controversial in that area, what's going on, where are the best places to go and party at, where's the best bars at, are there some comedy clubs in the area. Asking these topics, and even having plans for that night. Maybe you have plans at a comedy club or something like that. You're already going to the club and you have one ticket, just one, and have a bunch of girls fighting over that to be that person to go. So like there's just all kinds of things you can do. I mean, this is all about creating. This is all about creativity. It's what they don't teach you in school. They don't teach you how to be creative. Maybe they do a little bit, but most of the time you're gonna have to raise your hand before you get creative, buddy. And so the social setting is not a place where you need to raise your hand. Just go out there, figure out what works for you, and just find ways to grow, guys. And if you need other ways to grow, check out the Mentoring 365 playlist that we have. This is going to be in the Mentoring 365 playlist. The channel is plausibly anything plausible. And I'm Marshall, and I'm out, guys. Please take care, and find ways to grow.